Welcome back to the Behavior Code, the podcast that decodes the why behind what we do. I'm your host, Maria.
And I'm Gabriel. Today, we're tackling a topic that drives pretty much everyone crazy at some point in their dating lives: mixed signals.
Exactly. But here's the thing we're going to argue today. Mixed signals are not confusing.
That's a hot take, Maria. I can feel people yelling at their speakers right now. What do you mean they're not confusing? They're the definition of confusing.
I know, but hear me out. They aren't confusing, they're actually very, very clear. The problem is, we just don't like the answer they're giving us.
Right, so the message is clear, but we're hoping for a different message. So we tell ourselves it's a puzzle to be solved instead of a statement to be accepted.
Or they're emotionally unavailable, or, and this is a tough one to swallow, the connection is just a relationship of convenience for them. It works for them in the moment, and that's all.
It really boils down to this one simple truth we're going to keep coming back to. When someone likes you, their behavior is consistent. When they don't, their behavior is confusing. Let's dig into that convenience idea for a second because it's so important. A convenience relationship is one that serves a specific, immediate purpose for one person. Maybe they need a +1 for a wedding season. Maybe they're lonely on Tuesdays and you're always free on Tuesdays. You're not a partner, you're a utility. You're solving a short-term problem for them. The signal gets mixed because when they need you for that purpose, they can be incredibly charming and attentive. But the second the need is met, they vanish because your role in their life has been fulfilled for the time being.
It really boils down to this one simple truth we're going to keep coming back to. When someone likes you, their behavior is consistent. When they don't, their behavior is confusing. Let's dig into that convenience idea for a second because it's so important. A convenience relationship is one that serves a specific, immediate purpose for one person. Maybe they need a +1 for a wedding season. Maybe they're lonely on Tuesdays and you're always free on Tuesdays. You're not a partner, you're a utility. You're solving a short-term problem for them. The signal gets mixed because when they need you for that purpose, they can be incredibly charming and attentive. But the second the need is met, they vanish because your role in their life has been fulfilled for the time being.
That's the core of it. Consistency equals interest. Inconsistency equals, well, something else. So let's get into what that something else is. Why do people even send mixed signals in the first place?
Okay, so let's break down the why. I think the biggest, most common reason is they like you, but they just don't like you enough.
Oof, that's the hard truth. They enjoy your company, they think you're attractive, they like talking to you, but not enough to commit, not enough to prioritize you.
Right. So they dip in and out, they text you when they're bored or lonely, but disappear when something or someone better comes along. It's the ultimate soft no. A hard no is a clear rejection. I'm not interested. But a soft no is couched in just enough plausible deniability to keep you hooked. I'm really busy this week isn't a no, but it's also not a yes. It's a maybe, and that maybe is where they want you to live. Absolutely. It's the difference between being a priority and an option. Think of it like making dinner plans. When you're meeting your best friend you haven't seen in a year, you make a reservation, you clear your schedule, you build your day around it. That's a priority. But when a coworker says, we should grab a drink sometime, and you say, yeah, definitely, but no one ever follows up, that's an option. A person who is truly interested in you treats you like the reservation, not the vague sometime. And that not enough is so key. It means they're not willing to make you a priority. Think about it. When you really truly want something, a promotion, tickets to a concert, whatever, you move mountains to make it happen. You don't just fit it in if you have time. If their interest in you only fits into the convenient, empty gaps in their schedule, that's the clearest signal of all. You're a nice to have, not a must have. And that not enough is so key. It means they're not willing to make you a priority. Think about it. When you really truly want something, a promotion, tickets to a concert, whatever, you move mountains to make it happen. You don't just fit it in if you have time. If their interest in you only fits into the convenient, empty gaps in their schedule, that's the clearest signal of all. You're a nice to have, not a must have.
Which leads right into the next reason, attention. Some people just love having a fan club. They need that external validation, that text back, that knowledge that you're waiting by the phone. It's like, I had a friend who was seeing someone, and he would say things like, "You're the only person I can really be myself with." Sounds amazing, right? But he would only see her on a weeknight, never a Friday or Saturday, because his weeknights were empty and his weekends were reserved for trying to meet someone he considered a must-have. She was his emotional comfort zone, but not his plus one to the world. It's the ultimate soft no. A hard no is a clear rejection. I'm not interested. But a soft no is couched in just enough plausible deniability to keep you hooked. I'm really busy this week isn't a no, but it's also not a yes. It's a maybe, and that maybe is where they want you to live.
And that nice to have versus must have distinction is crucial. A nice to have person is like dessert. When you're full, you don't really need it, but if it's there, sure, why not? A must have person is the main course. You plan your meal around them. You're hungry for them. If someone is only treating you like dessert, you will always leave the table feeling unsatisfied. Oh, 100%. It's an ego boost, and they're not thinking about how it affects you. They're only thinking about how your attention makes them feel. It's, it's fundamentally selfish.
It is, and sometimes it's driven by loneliness. They don't want a relationship, but they don't want to be totally alone either. So they keep you on the hook as a sort of emotional support system without any of their responsibilities. And modern dating, with its apps and social media, has turned this into an art form. It's gamified attention. Someone can have a roster of people they text for that little hit of validation with no intention of ever taking it further. You're just the notification on their screen.
And it's important to distinguish between someone being genuinely lonely and reaching out versus someone using their loneliness as an excuse to get attention without responsibility. The first is a bid for connection. The second is a form of emotional exploitation. The classic backup plan. They want to know they have options, so they'll keep you simmering on the back burner just in case nothing else works out. It's a really crappy power dynamic.
Speaking of power, some people genuinely enjoy that. They like the feeling of having someone wrapped around their finger. The inconsistency, the push and pull, it's a game to them.
And maybe we can give a little grace here and say sometimes they are genuinely unsure. They might be recently out of a relationship or just not in a place to know what they want. But even then, their uncertainty is creating a clear no for you in the present moment. A perfect example is when they only message you after they see you post a story on Instagram having a good time. It's a power move. It's their way of saying, that's great, you're having fun, but remember me? I can pull your attention back whenever I want. It's about re-establishing control.
And that's a critical point. Their reason doesn't actually change the outcome for you. Whether they're being malicious, selfish, or just confused, the result is the same. You're left in a state of anxiety and uncertainty. Good intentions don't make inconsistent behavior any less damaging. That's the key. Their indecision is still a decision, and it's a decision that leaves you in limbo. Then you have the big ones, emotional unavailability and fear of commitment. They might really like you, but they are just incapable of moving forward. They get scared, they pull away.
And this ties directly into the big ones you mentioned, Gabriel, emotional unavailability and fear of commitment. I think people hear fear of commitment and they picture someone who is terrified of walking down the aisle. But it's often much more subtle. It's a fear of being truly seen, a fear of being accountable to someone else's feelings. They want the fun, the flirtation, the connection, but not the responsibility that comes with it. Yeah, they love the chase, but not the actual relationship. The beginning is exciting, but once it gets real, they're gone. And all these reasons, they all have a common thread. It's what you said, Gabriel. Mixed signals are usually clear signals delivered inconsistently.
Exactly. The clear signal is, I'm not able or willing to give you what you want. The inconsistency is how they keep you from fully accepting that message. And that pulls us into the deep psychological weeds of why this pattern is so damn powerful.
Yes, let's talk about the brain chemistry of it all, because it's not just in our heads, it's chemical. The number one reason this hot and cold behavior is so addictive is a psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement.
Right. Think of a slot machine in Vegas. You pull the lever, nothing. Pull it again, nothing. You do it over and over. You don't win every time. If you did, it would get boring. You don't lose every time because then you'd just give up and walk away. But because you might win, the reward is unpredictable, your brain gets flooded with dopamine. It's the anticipation, the possibility of the reward that's so powerful. That's what keeps you pulling the lever.
And that's exactly what the person sending mixed signals does. They ignore your text for a day, nothing. Then, suddenly, a super flirty, amazing message, jackpot. You go on a great date, jackpot. Then they disappear for a week, nothing, nothing, nothing. We get hooked on the maybe.
And it creates this incredible anxiety loop. The lows of being ignored make the highs of getting attention feel even more intense. It's literally an addiction cycle. And this is why we often find ourselves chasing emotionally unavailable people. Their very unavailability creates that intermittent reinforcement schedule. And it's so insidious because it taps into our natural desire for patterns. Our brains are prediction machines. We want to figure out the rule. Okay, so if I text them on a Tuesday, but not after 6 p.m., and I use a funny GIF, then I'll get a good response. We create these elaborate, nonsensical rulebooks to try and control a situation that is, by its nature, out of our control. We're trying to find a system in the chaos, but the chaos is the system, and it's so insidious because it taps into our natural desire for patterns. Our brains are prediction machines. We want to figure out the rule. Okay, so if I text them on a Tuesday, but not after 6 p.m., and I use a funny GIF, then I'll get a good response. We create these elaborate, nonsensical rulebooks to try and control a situation that is, by its nature, out of our control. We're trying to find a system in the chaos, but the chaos is the system. And let's not forget the scarcity principle. We place a higher value on things that are less available. When someone's attention is scarce, we perceive it as more valuable. If they were available all the time, we might not even be as interested. It's a flaw in our wiring.
Oh, 100%. It ropes in our ego. It becomes less about the person and more about validation. If I can just get them to commit, it will prove I'm worthy or special or desirable. It becomes a challenge.
It's a power dynamic. The person giving mixed signals holds all the cards, and the person receiving them is constantly trying to figure out the rules of a game that's designed for them to lose. There's a really fascinating and frankly depressing study that shows this. Basically, uncertainty increases attraction more than certainty.
That is so wild, right? We think we want security and consistency, but our brains are lighting up like a Christmas tree in the face of uncertainty. It's something we really have to consciously fight against.
We do, and the first step in fighting against it is learning to see the signals for what they are. Not as mixed, but as a clear no.
Okay, yes, let's get into the concrete stuff. The specific behaviors that people write off as confusing when they are in fact giant flashing neon signs that say, I'm not that interested.
Number one on my list. They take hours or even days to respond to your text, but you see them active online. They're posting on Instagram, they're watching your stories.
That's the absolute worst. The message is not, I'm busy. The message is, I have time for my phone, but I don't have time for you. It's a conscious act of deprioritization.
Exactly. Another one. They frequently cancel plans, often at the last minute with flimsy excuses.
Yep, because you were a placeholder. Something better came up, or they just didn't feel like it. When someone is excited about you, they protect the time they have planned with you. They look forward to it. I had a friend who was dealing with this. The guy would text her, "Good morning, beautiful," every single day. But when she'd ask to see him, he'd say, "Things are just so crazy right now." The words were, "I'm thinking of you," but the actions were, "I'm not making time for you." That gap between word and action is where all the confusion and anxiety lives.
What about this classic? They only text you late at night. The "you up" text?
So clear. This means they're not interested in your day, your mind, or a real relationship. They're interested in attention or a hookup when they're lonely. You are not a part of their life. You are an afterthought.
Here's a big one. You've been talking for weeks, maybe months, and they've never made any move to introduce you to their friends.
Yeah, because they don't see a future. You're compartmentalized. Integrating you into their life would be, well, an integration, and they're not looking for that.
Okay, the disappearing act. They're super intense for a few days, then vanish off the face of the earth, only to reappear a week later with a casual, hey, what's up? Like nothing happened.
This isn't a mystery. This is them demonstrating that they feel entitled to your time and attention on their terms only. They are showing you they will not be consistent. Believe them.
How about they're super flirty over text, but never make concrete plans? All talk, no action.
Again, they like the validation, the ego boost of the flirtation, but the effort of an actual date? Not interested enough.
The ultimate excuse. I'm just really busy.
Please, everyone is busy. Barack Obama was busy. He still found time for Michelle. It's not about having time, it's about making time. I'm busy is a polite way of saying you are not a priority.
And the final two, the big guns. They talk about the future in vague, dreamy terms. We should go there someday, but never make any actual plans. And of course, the knockout punch. They literally say the words, I am not ready for a relationship right now.
That's not a mixed signal. That is the clearest signal in the history of communication. When someone says that, believe them. Don't try to be the exception. It just comes back to our other core idea for today. If someone likes you, you won't be confused for long.
You won't. They will make it clear. So we've established that these signals are actually clear, which begs the next and maybe more important question. Why do we stay? Why do we accept it?
Yeah, this is where we have to turn the mirror on ourselves. Because the other person's behavior is only half of the equation. Our willingness to tolerate it is the other half. And I think the number one reason is just a deep, profound fear of losing the person entirely.
We think the breadcrumbs they're giving us are better than nothing. We're afraid that if we demand more or walk away, we'll be left with nothing. It's a scarcity mindset.
It really is, and it often stems from low self-esteem. We don't believe we deserve consistent, clear affection, so we accept the scraps. We think, well, this is as good as it gets for me. And society reinforces that scarcity mindset, especially for women. There's this implicit timeline, this idea that you're running out of chances. So you tolerate behavior you'd never accept if you truly believed in abundance, the abundance of your own worth, and the abundance of other, better suited partners out there.
And some people are just habitually attracted to unavailable people. We talked about attachment styles. If you grew up with inconsistent affection, that pattern feels like home. It feels familiar. A secure, available person might even feel boring.
Right, you confuse the anxiety and the drama with passion and love. Then there's the ego again, the desire to win them over. We think, I'll be the one to change them. I'll be so amazing they'll have to commit to me.
That's the savior complex. It's a fool's errand. You cannot love someone into treating you with basic respect and consistency.
And sometimes we get stuck because of the sunk cost fallacy. We've already invested so much time, so many emotions, so much energy. Walking away feels like we're admitting that it was all a waste.
So we invest more hoping for a different return, which is the definition of digging a deeper hole. It's so easy to do.
It is. We also tend to romanticize potential. We're not in love with the person as they are, this inconsistent, unavailable person. We're in love with the idea of who they could be on their good days, if only those good days were all the days.
You're dating a fantasy, and that fantasy is powerful. It protects you from the other big fear, the fear of being alone. You stay in a bad situation because you're worried there are no other options out there.
And let's be real, movies and social media don't help. We're fed these narratives of grand gestures, of winning someone over, of the chase. It teaches us that love is supposed to be hard and full of drama.
But it's not. Healthy, sustainable love is actually pretty calm. It's peaceful. But we get programmed to confuse chaos with chemistry. And I think that brings us to the most important point of this entire section. People don't stay because they're confused. They stay because they're hopeful.
That's it right there. You're not confused by their behavior. You know deep down what it means. But you're hopeful. You're clinging to the hope that they'll change, that they'll wake up and realize what they have, that the potential you see will finally become a reality.
And the hardest thing to do is to let go of that hope and instead embrace the reality of their action.
So let's recap everything we've talked about today. The biggest takeaway, the thesis of this whole episode, is that mixed signals are not mixed. They are a clear signal of ambivalence, low interest, or unavailability.
Remember the rule: when someone likes you, their behavior is consistent. When they don't, their behavior is confusing. Confusion is the answer. It's a no.
And we need to understand the psychology that makes this so powerful. That intermittent reinforcement, that slot machine effect, it gets us hooked on the possibility of a reward. Our brains are wired to chase that unpredictable dopamine hit.
And then we need to be ruthlessly honest about the behaviors we're seeing. The late-night texts, the canceled plans, the "I'm busy" excuses, these aren't clues in a mystery. They are facts. They are data points that lead to a very clear conclusion.
And finally, the hardest part is looking inward. We stay not because we're confused, but because we're hopeful. We're attached to a potential that doesn't exist. And the path forward is to choose the clarity of reality over the comfort of that hope.
So what's the actionable advice here? It's simple but not easy. Your new mantra should be, I don't do confusing. The moment you feel that anxiety, that uncertainty, that's your cue. It's your sign that this isn't the right situation for you.
Exactly. The goal is not to find someone who is perfect. The goal is to find someone whose actions align with their words. Someone who brings you peace, not puzzles.
Well said. You deserve clarity, and clarity is kindness. Anything else is just noise.
That's all the time we have for today on The Behavior Code. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe